BookTube. It is BookTube-A-Thon day 5, and I'm going to be doing the video challenge for today, which is to create a reading list for a class that you would like to teach. Now, if you can't tell by the title of my channel, I have a deep love of anything and everything Art Deco. The 20s and 30s just really have it for me. They're really interesting. And so this class would be a get your feet wet sort of class. A very low stress class on 1920s and 30s writing. I would start with, in this class, would be very accessible, easy, stress-free books from the 20s and 30s. Now, the first book on my reading list is The Vicious Circle. This is a short story collection. It was one of my BookTube-A-Thon challenges. It was for the book with someone on the cover. And I read this in a day. And it has a lot of really famous writers of the 1920s and 30s short stories in this book. Specifically, people who are members of the Algonquin Round Table. And those people are Robert Buchanelli, Mark Conley, Edna Ferber, Georgia S. Kaufman, Dorothy Parker, S.J. Perlman, and Alexander Woollcott. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. There were some short stories that were really humorous, and then there were some that were really stressful to me. In particular, some examples that come to mind are Dorothy Parker. Her short story, Dumb Blonde, is very sad. It's not lighthearted, it's not funny, it's very sad and tragic in my opinion, and was sad, just sad. But then you have the other side of Alexander Woollcott. There was a short story in here that was kind of like a dinner party, things go wrong, and somebody's been murdered, and so the police come in and they solve the crime by measuring people's butt prints in chairs. And so they basically make people sit down and they measure their rears and their butt prints, and that's how they solve the crime. And it is just ridiculous. It is ridiculously funny. So anyway, I think that this would kind of hit the high and the low notes and everything in between. There's some daily life sort of stories in here. So yeah, I think this would give you a touch of many authors that were published in magazines and newspapers back then. So very accessible, easy to read authors of the 20s and 30s are in this book. I think that this book is on most people's bucket list, and there's so many adaptations of it that I don't know anybody who doesn't want to read this book. And it's The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is Art Deco junk food. If you don't know anything about the Art Deco period, you know about The Great Gatsby. I specifically remember being part of an event called the Deco Ball, and I was trying to recruit friends to come and volunteer, and I remember telling them make sure you dress Art Deco for the event because that's the theme, and going back and forth trying to explain Art Deco to people. And I remember one of my friends, when they showed up at the event, was like, oh, you should have just said Gatsby themed. And so The Great Gatsby is just the absolute epitome of the Roaring 20s. These are two writers from the 20s and 30s, mostly the 30s, but writers that I personally love so much. So much love for these writers. And of course, Agatha Christie. I read somewhere that Agatha Christie is one of the best-selling writers ever. I think it was something like the only book out there that has sold more copies than her is the Bible and Shakespeare. So this is just the everyman's writer of the 20s and 30s. Everybody read these. A lot of people I know are still reading these. There's TV series based on, Miss Marple, Perot. Who doesn't love Agatha Christie, right? This specific story is about a dinner party where 10 people are invited, and one by one, everyone is getting killed and knocked off, and they have to try to solve who the murderer is before everybody at the party ends up dead. And finally, I could not do this video without talking about Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I think that this is just a super famous novel. I think recently on BookTube it's kind of revived the love of Rebecca. A lot of people are talking about it again. Basically, it is a book about a man who has remarried, and she moves into his big creepy gothic mansion and starts to believe that she's being haunted by his wife who passed away. And basically the house and the people that work there are very loyal to the former wife, so kind of a creepy gothic novel sort of thing. These would be the books I recommend to anybody who just wants to get into 20s and 30s literature. That time period has so many famous writers. A lot of modern classics come from that time period, but this, like I said, would just be a fun, super easy, low pressure class on getting your feet wet with 20s and 30s literature. My BookTube-A-Thon is going fairly well. I completed 2 books already, and then I am over halfway through the memoirs of Mary, Queen of Scots, and it's really stressful. Her life, this is a fictional book based on her life, but her life was very stressful and horrible, and it's just tragic what she went through. And then I'm also reading The Visionist, which I am enjoying as well, and I'm not as far into that one. I think I'm like 100 pages in. I'm hoping to finish at least those 2 books before BookTube-A-Thon ends. I've had a lot of stuff going on in the evenings this week. The week of BookTube-A-Thon I've been really busy, so that's unfortunate, but it's okay. I did not expect to be able to read 7 books, but I have read more than I usually do in this time frame, so I'm happy with that. Well, anyway, I hope you all have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow with a new video. So, bye!